me interrupt your enjoyment of the evening for this hastily put together rant about 3D printer filament. I've been 3D printing for approximately 4 years now, and each of these kind of filaments that you can see on screen I have experience with. I'll say the one thing that I can give to anyone who's doing 3D printing is you don't need to just go and buy what people on YouTube tell you to buy. You should experiment with filaments that are affordable and accessible, and then from those, obviously depending on the reliability that you are aiming for, buy the best filament that you can. When I first started 3D printing, I started exclusively using eSun filament. Of all the issues that I had, none of them were ever down to the filament. They were down to inexperience and a lack of knowledge of 3D printing. So I have always been able to recommend eSun filament, but that is not to say that it is the best filament out there. It is just one that I have had success with, and so I continue to buy it. It is one of the cheaper kinds, but it was also quite difficult to get hold of at some point. And living in a rural area, when you ran out of filament, there is nowhere locally to purchase it, so I would end up buying it online, and it would sometimes take 2 weeks to arrive, which is a lot of lead time if you want to be producing things. So eSun was good, but the availability of eSun was quite poor for me. You might be in a different boat, and that's okay. eSun PETG comes in a nice range of colours. I have picked this one because I think it's a pretty close match to the DeWalt yellow, but we'll see how it goes. I haven't printed, well I have actually, I've been printing with eSun Clear on my little Ender 3, and it's been going nicely. From then, this is way back when, and I have heard these things have gotten much better. From eSun I moved on to 3D Phillies, and 3D Phillies was cheap. It was available with immediate dispatch from eBay, and so it arrived very quickly. And so I started to buy this stuff in, well, I wouldn't say bulk, but I would probably buy 5 kilograms at a time. And these are all 1 kilogram rolls, so I'd buy 5 boxes. I'd spend, I don't know, I think they're about $22 a roll, so I'd spend just over $100, but it would get free postage. Compared to the eSun that was about $29 a roll. So it represented a very good value proposition, but I did have some issues with it. It wasn't fraught with issues. I did have some issues with their PLA, and it seemed that it was often quite brittle, which was a sign that it had absorbed moisture. But I also had a lot of filament that was stored up, not getting used. So I think if you're going to use 3D Phillies, it is a good option, it is affordable, but I would also make sure that my storage of any unused rolls or partially used rolls was on sole. This is actually some filament that I got for my birthday, and this is PLA Silk. I have never printed a PLA Silk. Oh, I can't show you what it looks like. I've never printed with silk style filaments before, so I'm really excited to see what kind of items this produces. Of late, since I bought my Ender 3, I have really been almost exclusively using this brand. It is not because it's the cheapest, but it is because it arrives the fastest. This is, if you're in Australia, and there's no sponsorship, there's no advertising here, this is a brand called T-Core. It is a very entry-level basic 3D printer filament. I've been buying their PLA and PETG. It comes from a shop online called InkStation, where I actually got my printer. And this stuff, if I order it on a Monday, is usually in my little backwater of Bumfudge, Australia, within 2 business days. So it is by far the fastest, and if you order enough rolls, you get free postage. I have had very good success with this. I haven't actually had a roll that I would say has been a dud yet, but the range of colours isn't brilliant. So if you are looking for a good entry-level filament for a 3D printer, I would recommend any of these. But really what I would be saying is, if you want a good 3D printer filament, experiment with lots of different brands, and then find what is a good balance of cheap and accessible and successful for you. Thanks very much for watching, and keep your bananas where you can see them.